We have officially made it through 2025, an amazing year of anime. And the question is always, okay, well, what was anime of the year? And hey, fair question, but the question that I really want to ask in this moment is, what was the best fight of the year? And honestly, that might be even harder to choose, because now you're not just judging animation, you're judging emotion, stakes, choreography, and whether or not you said oh at any point out loud at least once. So instead of fighting the entire internet, I decided to, hey, fight myself and rank my top 10 anime fights of 2025 purely based on my personal enjoyment. Now, keep in mind, there is no objectivity here. There's no power scaling spreadsheets, just vibes, impacts, and frankly, how I felt watching the clip. Starting us off at number 10, we have Dragonball Daima. Now look, seeing adult Goku again, instant serotonin boost. And really, this fight isn't flashy in the modern sense. It feels like classic Dragon Ball. Simple choreography, clean movements, and nostalgia doing 80% of the heavy lifting. Now, hey, is it the best fight technically? Absolutely not. Did it make me smile like an idiot? You better believe it did. And honestly, in my book, that's what counts. But once the nostalgia wears off, things get darker, which leads us to our number 9. We have ReZero Garfield versus Kurgan. Now, this fight was raw, not very pretty, not too flashy, but beautiful animation, and frankly, it was just two absolute units going for each other's throats, literally. Now, we know ReZero doesn't really do fights in terms of spectacle very often, but when it does, it leans into hard brutality and desperation. Now, hey, it's not very high on the list, mainly because yes, animation was nice and very abstract at points, but the way the fight ended kind of left you feeling like we needed some more. But speaking of needing more, let's talk about a fight that I'm sure everyone is going to expect to be higher, which is going to be solo leveling at number 8, Beru versus Jinu. So yes, this fight is absolutely cool. The ore farming was off the charts. But I mean, if we're being honest, this is less of a fight and more of a power demonstration. It looks amazing, but once you realize Jinu was never really in any danger, some of the attention kind of disappears. At the end of the day, this was a visual spectacle, but it was a lot of flashing lights, right? A lot of times we really didn't know what was going on. There's a lot of cuts, and yes, that is cool, but that does leave a lot to be wanted. And speaking of things left to be wanted, you know, I know y'all gonna hate me for this one, but at number 7, I got Bakugo versus One for All. So I'm just gonna be honest, I have never enjoyed the story of My Hero. I think the writing is not very good. And the whole thing with Bakugo, right? So this man had his internal organs literally sewn together. He was put together piecemeal, and he was able to unleash such crazy power, slam through buildings, tank blast, all this kind of stuff, and he still made it through the end. I mean, come on, let's be so for real. But that said, it is a visual spectacle, and I do fully understand it is a culmination of his character arc, so that is why it's on the list. Now, hey, I won't go as far as saying it's garbage. However, for the next entry, it is garbage in the best possible way. At number 6, we got Gachiakuta Rio versus No.8. I still don't really know how to pronounce her name, to be honest. But look, this fight was style over sanity, right? They went from using their vital instruments to throwing hands to back to the vital instruments to the inevitable outcome, which is why this fight is so high on the list. And the fact that at the very end of the fight, the fact that our girl upped a blicky and put her down was the funniest thing I've seen in anime in a long time. The fact that we are in a world of superpowers, yet the gun is still almighty. Now, though that was funny, I think this next entry on the list has the most actual emotion behind it, and that's going to be our number 5, Kaiju No.8, Shinomiya versus Kaiju No.9. This fight was so amazing because at the end of the day, we understood that Shinomiya was not going to come out of this alive, but it was the fact that he locked in and did the best he could, pulled out all the damage humanly, physically possible, and did put a hurting on Kaiju No.9 before the end. And with that, we just got to show our respects and pour one out for the dead homie. But at the end of the day, who wants to watch an old man and a monster fight when we could watch two baddies go at it, which is our number 4, Queen vs. Boa 2B Hero X. So this fight was just frankly insane. The animation style shifts, the pacing, the choreography, everything was so well done. Not to mention the way they utilized their powers was simply epic. At the end of the day, this fight felt like art that punches you in the face. With that in mind, there are heroes and there are legends, which takes us to number 3. Our top 3 spot is going to be Zoro versus Lucci One Piece. Now look, Zoro fights are usually always big ticket events, and this one is no exception. Easily some of the best animation of 2025, hands down. But it's not just the animation, the sound design, the sheer weight behind every swing. This fight reminds you why Zoro is him. But now we enter the fights that I was not expecting, and am genuinely surprised because my top 2 positions are not even anime, they're donghua. At number 2, we have the All Devouring Whale. And frankly, if you slept on this donghua, then hey, it's time to wake up, because easily one of the best visual spectacles of 2025, maybe even longer. Because look, this fight was so intense and creative, and that's really the big thing here and why it's so high on this list. Utilizing not just hand-to-hand, but their, monsters, Pokemon, whatever you want to call them, right, in order to fight. And just the escalations were so epic. Honestly, I really can't even do it justice by these words. You just need to watch it for yourself. But that brings us to my number one best fight of 2025, and this is another donghua, and it's Super Cube, specifically episode 7, bro. This fight came out of nowhere and honestly refused to leave my brain. I've been thinking about this fight since I saw it. The pacing, the choreography, the power escalation, it's clean, brutal, and intensely satisfying. Now, caveat, only episode 7 went this hard, so don't expect this level of quality from any other episode in the season. But look, it was so hyped that episode 7 was enough for me. I think the reason I love this one so much is because it focused so much on the choreography. It was actual hand-to-hand. We can see each movement. They use the foreground, the background so well. And I think that is a dying art in the anime game. Because look, pretty much the majority of the other anime on this list, the big thing that they all have in common is flashing lights and fast cuts. So yes, it's a fight, but it's more of a visual spectacle, if anything. But yeah, that's my top 10 anime fights of the year based entirely on my own enjoyment. Now look, you don't have to agree, but if you do, or if you don't, it's all good. Either way, drop me a like and leave it in the comments. Let me know what your number 1 is, and hey, let's talk. Peace.